Hey everybody, it's Mike Jeffers, ChicagoJazz.com, and this is episode 80 of Jazz. This week, I told you I was going to have live guests, Pat, Cameron, they're here. Sabertooth celebrating their 25th anniversary, November 17th, and more. We're going to talk all about that next. All right, everybody, we're back. Johnny O's live, episode 80. Now, I got to set this up. This is Johnny O's, located at the corner of 35th and Morgan. It's a very famous hot dog / grocery store here in Bridgeport. You know, and I'm happy to have the guys here. You guys are the first guests on Jazz this week, episode 80, and I haven't had any live guests. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Well, actually, I had two, but that was a long time ago. Yeah. They're here because they're going to be on the cover of the December, January, February issue of Chicago Jazz Magazine. So we're going to kill three birds with one stone. We're going to do the interview. We're going to talk about your show coming up November 17th, 25 years of Sabertooth at the Green Mill every Saturday night. I'm sure you guys haven't missed a night. 25 years, right? Never? Okay. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to do a full-length interview, which is going to be featured in the magazine, and then we're also going to put it up as a podcast. And then, of course, I'm going to have three picks at the end of this whole thing, and you guys can chime in because you probably know all of the guys I'm going to talk about that are shows coming up this coming weekend. But first, let's talk a little bit about Sabertooth. 25 years, number one, right? A band being together. And number two, 25 years at the same place. I mean, it's got to be the longest-running gig in the country, right?
I doubt that. I mean, I think there are a couple of bands that have actually been around longer than we have, right? Mike Smith at Andy's, is that right?
He's been there for 35 years or something like that.
So there you go. That completely trumps us by 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Come on, Pat. We're quizzing you. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think
it's a long gig. You guys have been there for a long time.
Yeah. One thing is for sure is like we have been steady as a band.
Yeah.
From week to week, the same band pretty much, except for a couple exceptions. For 25 years, every single week, we're there. You know, thick or thin, through storm and
yeah.
You know, we're there. You know, and so that's for sure. Everybody can count on Sabertooth being there after midnight every Saturday night.
Right.
There's only been a couple exceptions when we haven't, and that's when like Christmas lands on the 25th, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Other than that, we're there.
You're there. You guys are the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you guys have been there thick and thin, like you said, for 25 years. So let's just touch on this right now. How did you guys get together and start? Did you guys get together before you got the gig, or were you guys kind of playing around town and stuff, and then all of a sudden got the gig and said, well, let's start doing this every Saturday?
We met, was it at the Get Me High that we met?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Get Me High Lounge, which is sort of a legendary place in Chicago. It was kind of a little hole in the wall on Honore. And you know, various guys would be playing there. Brad Good had a steady gig there. Right?
Yeah.
Lynn Halliday used to play there. All kind of guys. And I think I had the gig that night, right?
Yeah.
It's like a quartet gig or something.
Yeah.
So Pat stopped in. He had just moved to Chicago recently.
Yeah.
And he and Dan Trudell stopped in.
Oh, okay.
This is 1990.
1990.
Yeah.
And
Fall
you
of
guys,
1990.
and that was at the Get Me High.
Yeah.
And you guys started playing that night.
Well, no, he didn't. I don't think he even had his axe that night.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys just met that night or something?
Yeah, we just met. He listened
Oh.
to me and was complimentary, and we got to talking and so forth. So.
Oh.
Yeah, I walked in with Dan Trudell, and we're at the end of the bar, and I see this guy up there with the brim hat and playing like Johnny Griffin and Yusef Lateef and Ross Simon Roland-Kirk and Ben Webster and Coleman Hawkins, all these guys wrapped in, you know, not your typical tenor sound that out of college you were hearing, you know.
Yeah.
So I was immediately drawn to it and his presence, and I was like, Cameron, I was like, what's that guy's name? And said to Dan Trudell, and he said, that's Cameron, and I said, I gotta know that guy. Like, I want to play with that guy, you know. And so he hired me without even ever hearing me or anything, he hired me to play the bowls with him.
Oh, the Jazz Bulls.
The Jazz Bulls.
Another pretty legendary Chicago jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah. The following week, unheard, he hired me.
Yeah.
So
He just had the vibe. You can tell, right?
Yeah, I can tell.
So I had a gig with him, and we immediately connected on that gig, and it turns out he had a weekly gig there. So from that moment on,
At the Bulls you were playing
Yeah,
every
the Bulls.
week? Yeah.
That's right.
So from that moment on, we that was 26 years ago. We've been playing every week together.
Wow.
Because he heard me at the Bulls, and he asked if I wanted to do the gig with him on a regular basis.
Yeah, I
And
remember that night very specifically. We were standing on a break close to the bar, and I said, "So, what do you think about doing about having a band together?" He said, "Well, there don't seem to be too many two-tenor bands in Chicago right now. I think that's probably a good idea."
Yeah.
And so we just agreed on it, and that's been the way it's been.
And there it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we played there, and that was kind of a jam session-ish.
Originally, it was a jam
was.
session, and then it was just
Yeah.
me and Cameron Piffner and friends, like you often get with guys that don't really have any kind of real focus on anything. They just want to play, like they've got a gig. So I used to have guest artists come in. You would have one guy in the front line that I would like to play with, and Pat turned out to be the guy that I thought, well, I want to do more than just an occasional gig with this guy. So
Yeah. Well, let's talk for our purposes on the show right now, before we get into the big deep interview. How did you guys end up at the Green Mill? Because we want to talk about that, and then we're gonna save the big long interview for the magazine and for the podcast, which will be coming out. But we should talk. We got to find out how you guys got the gig at the Green Mill.
Right. So back to the Get Me High, ironically.
Yeah.
Now we're performing at the, and this is months later after we met at the Get Me High. We're performing there as the Cameron Piffner, Pat Mellinger quartet.
Okay.
And Dave Gimolo walks in, and he's down at the end of the bar, and Dave. That's not atypical. Dave goes to a lot of clubs to hear musicians and bands play. And we got done, and on the break, Dave was like, I really dig you guys, and he asked if we wanted to play Saturday nights there, So
I don't think he did it right there.
he gave us a month, didn't he?
I don't think he invited us at that point. I think he thought about it, and I think he called me up after that.
Okay.
I think he had my number, but
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Mike Finnerty had been playing there before us.
Okay.
And Dave wanted to make a change, and I was immediately just struck with guilt, right? Because Mike and I were friends. We lived down the street from one another for years.
Yeah.
And so I quick called up Mike and said, man, I didn't do anything to get this gig. It just fell in my lap, and I'm going to take it because it's a great gig.
Yeah.
I hope you forgive me, So hopefully that he forgave me.
But why? I mean, at midnight, right? I mean, on a Saturday. I mean, obviously it's perfect for any musician because they probably get done with their gig at 11. A corporate gig or something gets over at 11 or 11:30. You can get over there, even if it ends at midnight. You can make it work to get over there in time to play the gig.
Yeah.
But I mean, that had to be a shock to your system to all of a sudden, like, hey, here's a steady gig from midnight to 4. Or was that kind of common at that time? Were there still those late night gigs happening in Chicago?
Gigs would go like at the Get Me High and such, and at the Bowls, and so they would go till 2 or so.
2.
Yeah.
But of course, there would be some hanging afterwards, So it was really right in line with my schedule, and nothing's really changed, sadly.
So now you guys have a big show coming up November 17th. You're going to be there the 12th. The 12th, the 11th, the 12th, whatever that Saturday is coming up this Saturday.
Yep.
But the 17th is your 25th anniversary. Are there going to be any surprise guests or any
And that's a Friday
fanfare?
night, of course, yeah. The Friday night. Early show.
Right.
So we'll be
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Friday.
For all those
right.
people who always say, gee, I'd love to hear you guys, but I just can't make those hours. It's just too much for me. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And you even hear guys who are long-standing professional musicians saying, how do you guys do this? How do you do that? And I'm like, yeah. We're real jazz musicians, We play real jazz hours. None of this I won't use the word, but none of this 8 to 11 crap, you know.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right.
So what do you guys? So it's on Friday night, from 9 to 1,
our
right? You guys are
our
doing that
celebration,
set.
right?
Yeah, so 9 to 1 on Friday, November 17th. Is there any guest artists or anything? Are you guys just going to blow your typical Sabertooth stuff? And
It'll probably be the quintessential best of the best.
oh,
Yeah.
Sabertooth.
oh,
Yeah.
very cool.
I think on the 20th we talked about bringing in some people who were influential and played in the band in the early day, but we decided we'd keep it quartet, and that's what we're doing here on the 25th.
Because that's always a scheduling nightmare anyway. There have been so many great
Yeah.
musicians that passed through our band, and then a lot of them live other places now. They live in
Yeah.
like other cities and stuff, or they're on tour. So,
Yeah. So the 17th is actually the 25th anniversary. Is that why you're doing it on that Friday, or?
No, actually, the week we actually started would have been Thanksgiving weekend. It's the
okay.
the week before the December
Okay.
hits.
So this is the night you're doing the celebration.
Yep.
Yeah.
November 7th.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to finish up the rest of this interview, which you're going to definitely want to hear, coming up on ChicagoJazz.com. It'll be in Chicago Jazz Magazine. But you guys have to help me close out this show. Now, I always have 3 picks of the picks of the week coming up. So this is like November. Well, now you got me all flip-flop. So it's like November 10th, 11th, 12th, in that realm. And I always pick 3 shows. Now, these are my picks for people that can't make up their mind, but these are good shows to go check out if you're unfamiliar with the jazz scene, or if you want to go see somebody play, maybe not hardcore jazzers, casual music fans, or you want to go see a cool club. So I always pick 3 shows, but by no means, my disclaimer, I have to have a disclaimer,
Of course.
by no means are these the only shows or the best shows. Okay? Check them all out on ChicagoJazz.com, of course. All right, so here are my 3 picks, and I think you guys know all of these guys. So coming up at the Green Mill on the 10th and the 11th, violinist Zach Brock and Phil Markowitz. The quartet's going to be there on Friday and Saturday. Now, you guys must know Zach, right? Because he's from Chicago, and he must have sat in with you guys or something over the years.
Yeah, in the earlier days, it was a jam session when we
Okay.
began. Well, it wasn't really officially a jam session. We can talk about that later. But anyhow, we had people sitting in, and Zach Brock was one of them. On a regular basis, Zach would play with us at Sabertooth.
And
Yeah.
of course, he's welcome to sit in whenever he wants because he's a great musician.
He is. He's a dynamite musician, and he's in New York now, but he travels all over the world, and it's incredible. Okay, moving on, and we've got, so here's another pick of mine, November 10th at Winters Jazz Club, the Scott Burns Quartet. Now, I know you guys know Scott Burns, and I think you guys mentioned he subs in every once in a while, too,
Friend of
right?
ours, Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And was he
Who's on
somebody
his
that...
band? Just
He's a regular
It's
substitute.
his quartet. I'm not sure who's in the band or whatever, but it's at
Okay.
Winters Jazz Club right there in Streeterville. Scott Burns Quartet, November 10th.
excellent musician,
Yeah.
great jazz man.
He was a regular substitute with us.
Was he?
For a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Great guy, too. All right, my third pick of the week. You can't go wrong with this. The Jazz Showcase, number 1. Obviously a legendary club. Donald Harrison's in town with his quartet. November 10th, 9th through the 12th. And, of course, I always have to plug this. Of course, the Sunday Save the Children matinee at the Jazz Showcase, 4 p.m. Kids 12 and under get in free, and you get to see Joe Siegel and buy his book. I have to plug that, too.
He has a book?
He has a book.
Oh, yeah, it's out.
I helped him put the book together,
Hey,
and
cool.
red alert, we're about to start selling it on ChicagoJazz.com. Stay tuned. The
Nice.
deal has been worked out. We're getting there. Okay, but Jazz Showcase, quick word about the Jazz Showcase. Sabertooth's never played at the Showcase, have you guys? It's
No.
always just been at the Mill,
We
right?
have not. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
true.
but you
Pat's
guys have probably
there.
played
Pat's
there.
played there several times.
Yeah.
You play there with Bobby and your own group, and
Yeah.
that hacker musician, what's his name? Eric Schneider,
Yeah.
terrible sax player. Oh, God. I'm just kidding, Eric. I know you're watching this. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. Guys, I appreciate you being on the first live guest episode of Jazz This Week here. Of course, get all the information at ChicagoJazz.com. And if I don't see you somewhere, and these guys don't see you somewhere this weekend, hopefully we will see you somewhere out on the scene.